Haven't you ever wondered why French pastry is that good and how it became a league of its own? How is it possible that not a single country could export that number of delicacies to the rest of the world like France did? Today, we will learn why and how French pastry became the ultimate boss of all world pastries, so don't go anywhere. Whether it's the buttery and flaky croissants, the crispy and creamy Mille Feuille, or the lighter than air macarons, it's very rare to find a single national kitchen that produced that wide array of such pastries that are as sophisticated and popular. French pastries being amazing is one thing, but the unusual thing is that European kitchens usually have one or two famous foods at most, not to mention pastry. For instance, can you buy any of the British pastries in other countries? Could you buy a Yorkshire pudding or a Chelsea bun in Brussels or Mexico City? Or have you ever heard of brazo gitano or boñuelos from Spain? That's why what we're dealing with here is a very unusual culinary phenomenon. First of all, let's talk about what constitutes the greatness of French pastry. A French pastry is usually a composition of various refined elements. The sophistication of such could be defined by a single concept, which is contrast and harmony, the contrast of textures and the harmony of flavors. For example, having a bite of a nutty, domed macaron filled with a rich buttercream is a time-pausing experience due to the contrast of textures between the shell and the filling, as well as the harmony of their tastes. We can say pretty much the same thing about croissants, as the laminated dough conjoins external flakiness and internal softness, let alone having it filled with pistachio or almond cream. Another good example is one of the latest arrivals to the French Pastry Hall of Fame, which is opera cake. This cake consists of 3 repeated layers of ganache, cake and buttercream, and 2 layers on the top and the bottom of praline and glaze. French pastry is generally prepared with creams, fruits and custard, and it caters to all occasions. From a breakfast pain au chocolat all the way to an extravagant croque-en-bouche wedding cake tower. French pastry is all about cushiony textures, flaky surfaces and balanced fillings. That's why it's appreciated and celebrated all around the world. There are 2 major features of French pastry. The first is precision and technique. It's a well-known fact that French baking is an exact science. The meticulous techniques, from the perfect lamination of dough to the precise tempering of chocolate, contribute to the unmatched quality. My personal experience with that is that if you manage to pull off a French dessert, you will be able to cook pretty much everything afterwards. Nothing would ever be able to intimidate you in the kitchen. When you prepare a French dessert, you take into account the temperature of the kitchen, the humidity levels, and the milligram weight of the ingredients, as well as the exact speed of whisking, the pressure applied on the dough, and such hair-splitting minute details. The second major feature of French pastry is high-quality ingredients. Traditional French recipes emphasize quality ingredients like rich butter, fine flour, and fresh cream. Ingredients make a world of difference to French pastry chefs, to the point that some of them source their ingredients from specific parts of the world. Now that we spoke about why French pastry is boss, let's find out how this happened. The first reason leading to the superiority of French pastry is openness and innovation. French baking is deeply rooted in the country's history and tradition. The French were mining for techniques during their culinary renaissance, and they enhanced those imported ideas, taking them to whole different levels. For example, croissants are originally Austrian, macarons come from Italy, and baba au rhum was a cake from Poland called babka ponchowa. However, the French were very open during building their tradition, which other countries with horrible food never did, like Spain for example. The second reason is civilization and colonization. It was during Middle Ages when you see the first distinction between cooks and pastry cooks, giving birth to the pâtissier or pastry chef. Pâte à choux, light pastry dough, ice cream and macarons were introduced to France by Queen Catherine de' Medici, who married King Henry II. decadent desserts and buttery pastries were served regularly at the court of Louis XIV, who was famous for hosting grand meals late in the evening. One of the events that fueled the public rage against the monarchy during the French Revolution was a comment made by the wife of Louis XIV, Marie Antoinette, when she was told that the French subjects couldn't afford having bread. She said, "Let them eat cake." That's one of the great examples of the dietary conception of the French elite at the time. Just like the Medici family contributed to the Renaissance of Europe by sponsoring sciences and arts, Catherine de' Medici sponsored confectionery, and since then, the French take pastry with the highest levels of seriousness. New inventions kept coming every century, like brioche, praline, profiteroles, and crème brûlée in the 1600s, Madeleine cakes, Mille Feuille, mousse, soufflé, and île flottante or floating island in the 1700s, Croissant, pain au chocolat, Eclairs, and Saint-Honoré cake in the 1800s. Even the 20th century had great items like Paris-Brest and opera cake. One fun history fact about the significance of pastry to the French is that these people actually went to war with Mexico over a bakery shop that was looted by Mexican officers. It was literally dubbed the Pastry War of 1838. I'm not making that up, you can Google it. All French pastries have a royal appeal to them, and that level of fanciness stems from how France was a hub of luxurious industries, like the silk trade for instance. By the 17th century, France was the European capital of the silk trade. Silk was more than just a fabric. It symbolized wealth and status, exclusively used by society's upper echelons. The increasing demand for exquisite goods and the influx of wealthy merchants fostered an environment where culinary arts could thrive. The French colonial empire was established in 1534, and since then it had been almost everywhere in the world, starting from North America, Latin America, Northwest and Equatorial Africa, the Levant, the Indian Ocean, Southeast Asia, China, and even India. With that massive expansion, the spread of French culture across continents introduced people to these amazing delights. The patisseries of Paris, with their exquisite window displays, became a destination for pastry enthusiasts, attracting visitors till this very day. Let me know what you think about French pastries and about your favorite French pastry item in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching, and see you soon with great videos to come.